Hello, I'm Mark David Baer. Welcome to MUSE, live at the Museum of Monterey. My guest, David Richardson. This segment about Proust. And last week at the museum, we had an event with the Alliance Francaise, celebrating the 100th year publication of Swann's Way. David is a painter, artist, has recently come out with a book called RESEMBLANCE, and it's a series of paintings of the characters of In Search of Lost Time. So let's talk about what you did.
Okay. I painted 77 of about 200 plus characters of a la Recherche de Temps Perdu, Marcel Proust's novel, in about 3 years after taking 3 years to read the book.
So the topic of our conversation at the museum was the Proust experience, and both David and I are not, we're not scholars, we're enthusiasts, I would say what it is. And what happens when you read this book is you do have a counter experience. That's what it is it's a very in-depth study of almost a very microscopic look at his world, and it's a kind of a gateway into your own life. Would you say that? What in the 3 years that you spent studying the book, what was your experience?
I was fascinated by his ability to talk about his life and mine and the lives of my friends and the people I'd known in my life. He captivated me for his vision of universal themes from art, science, love, everything about being alive.
There isn't any other book like this book in terms of something that it's not about the plot, it's not about the subject, no. It's about the lucidity of the writing, I think, and it's something that, again, with the experience, so I came and met you, you found out, you heard about the event, you couldn't come to the event, you read about this in a paper in New York, out of a paper in San Francisco, you called me, and then I called you, and because people who know this work want to communicate. We sat down, we could immediately jump in, and we discussed, well, could we do this with Ulysses, with James Joyce? Probably not.
I couldn't.
Yeah, probably not. So this is the only book, and I've had these experiences many times with other people, other, I guess, Proustians for a better word. You've had these experiences many times with people with the book. You got William C. Carter to write your introduction. Let's tell the audience a little bit about him. Bill
Carter is an extraordinary scholar of Proust. He's the emeritus professor at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and he wrote a best-selling biography of Proust. Through Patrick Alexander, who is another Proustian, who writes guides to Proust, I was introduced to Dr. Carter, and he said I should publish them as a book, and he would write an introduction. So I did it. I did do that.
Let's talk about the painting of the portraits.
Well, they kind of came like spontaneously to me. I didn't set out to paint them. I was just kind of bored in my studio, and I had some pieces of balsa wood and started in on a figure of a woman, a torso, and came back to the piece 3 days later and realized that the figure was a portrait of what I thought was Oriane de Guermantes in one of her many masks. And I thought with some time and work, I could set out and do as many of the portraits as time and my energy allowed. And eventually realized I could put them into a book, and did.
So how many did you do?
Only 77 so far.
So what I've found terrific about this is it's a really great touchstone for the book, you know, because again, it's hard to keep track of this many characters. I mean, this is a sprawling 2,200 pages, I believe, when you get done with the full book. And keeping it together is sometimes difficult, especially the smaller characters. And what you realize in this is what a funny book this is when you see the portraits and you remember some of the characters and you remember the incidents. It's almost a good, nice Cliff Notes guide to a way into the book.
It was also a way into my own self. I'm not a painter particularly of portraits or of people. I'm a landscape artist primarily. This gave me a chance to work with painting people. It is a very funny book. People are turned away from Proust because of the length of the novel, the length of the sentences, the complexity of the sentences, the structure, which are quite beautiful. They're also quite funny. There are many incidences of great humor in the book.
You had to do quite a bit of research to get the costuming correct, to get the...
Well, the internet, you know, the web. I would have been in the library all the time rather than the studio. And what's available on the World Wide Web is incredible. It's how the book really came to be. I looked at costumes from the period from 1870 to the 1920s, and I used several online guides to keep me straight with the characters and where they were in incident and in appearance in the novel. Mark Calkins, Dr. Mark Calkins of the Proust Society in San Francisco, his website's very helpful for finding the characters.
So you took this to France and you took this to the conference, and how was that?
Oh, this was the 5th biennial conference of Marcel Proust in Cabourg in Normandy. And Cabourg is the village, the seaside village on the coast there, where Marcel spent summers in the Grand Hotel de Balbec, and it's called in the novels. And they have conferences there, and I was staying with some friends in France, in Aquitaine, and I went up to meet Dr. Carter in the flesh, other people that I'd met only online, with a prototype of this book.
And let me hold this up just to...
I showed a prototype that my friends and I had done in France, and I was kind of blown away. It was a hit, and was told to do something more formal. And I came home, cut my trip short, came back to Berkeley where I was staying at that time, and published the book. I found a very good designer, a very good printer, and self-published.
So they were selling it in Berkeley and at the Los Angeles Museum of Art.
Yes, Dagny Corcoran, all through the experience, helped me with this, other people as well. She took copies to sell at the bookstore at LACMA, and Marion Abbott at Mrs. Dalloway's in Berkeley sold copies, and I sold them to myself, to people I'd met.
It's a bit like casting for a movie, what you've done. So again, 3 years to paint these characters. It's almost like casting, and now you see them. How's this changed how you see the book? Because now you see the characters in the book like your own. I mean, you've really personalized it by...
But only for myself.
For yourself.
Not for other readers.
Yes.
I have no intention of setting my characters of Marcel's, the features of his characters for other readers. I mean, we read Gone with the Wind and we see Scarlett O'Hara. Somebody can read In Search of Lost Time and not see my Orion.
How were things different after you did this in terms of your relationship with the book than before?
Oh, it only increased my understanding, my personal understanding of the book. I don't attempt to understand the book completely, only my reading of it. I pick it up now and again. when I'm not reading something else, and it's broadened what my reading. I'm now finally reading Balzac, which is good, but it's not Marcel Proust.
Just so the audience understands, this really is still a work in progress. You've just finished this. You've made a limited number of editions. They're beautiful. And then the next step, and hopefully some of the things we can do here, is get this out into a wider publication, and also to start displaying the paintings in a public way, which is something I'm hoping we can do here at the museum one of these days. But also, what is your further plans with the book?
Well, there are lots more characters to do. It's nice to take a break from it. You know, you learn and then you stop and then you keep going, and it all circles back like a magic lantern around the studio. There's the Courvoisiers to do. There's the Serge Leduc, Mother and Sons. There are all sorts of more characters I could do. A next edition is possible. I want to take it back to the 16th conference in Coburg in 2015. The 6th, not the 16th.
So let's talk about you for a second. So you've recently moved back to Carmel Valley after a long, long absence. And how is it being back here, and how is this going to influence now future work?
I hope in the very best way possible. I love it here. It's been 40 years since I was here. I first came to Monterey, I think when I was 9 years old, with my mother and father on a trip to see all the missions in California. My grandfather was born in Holone in an adobe. And I was over here in summers. We'd come over in the weekends, and I just finally gravitated here when I was a young man. Then I moved around, San Francisco mostly, back to my hometown, and found myself last year needing a place again to set up a studio. I called an old friend. She said, "David, come here. Look at this place." I came down, I took it. I love it, it's great. It's very romantic here. The area is so beautiful. When I was in Normandy at this conference, trying to figure out where I would be when this extended trip to France was over that I took last year, I was on the train, and a little triangle of the sea showed up through the leaves and through the light coming through. And I thought the only place I really want to be is someplace on a coast. And loving California, I thought, well, Carmel, Monterey, the peninsula, any place from Santa Cruz to Big Sur to Cachagua would be good. And I was really fortunate in being able to come back here.
And any last words about the Proust experience?
Everybody needs to have it, but everybody needs to find their time to take it.
Thank you very much, and I'm Mark Baer, my guest David Richardson. We will be back with the next segment of MUSE in just a moment.